Baby, Fantasy 2022. You got two choices. You can stay the course, do what you know is right, or you can Costanza.
Well, here's your chance to try the opposite. Instead of tuna salad and being intimidated by women, chicken salad and going right up to them.
Yeah, I should do the opposite. I should.
If every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right.
Yes. I will do the opposite.
Those are your choices. Wasn't a bad week, but welcome back. Injuries galore, right? Oh, where do we go? We go here. Boys and girls, welcome to Answers with Guests, Week 5, halftime adjustments. A couple viewers popping in. We are Fantasies, Football's Inside Scoop from Outside the Box. Like us, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Patreon. I'm Guess. You're with Answers with Guests. Check us out, hashtag Answers by Guests, and use hashtag ABGFF. Let's get right into it. Madison, worthless without Cook. JJ came back to form. Thielen did well, and all our Saints were on point. Murray looked good. Now he's on Denver. We'll talk about that shortly. Chargers and Eckler dominate. We told you, Eckler owners, do not worry. Nico resurfaced. Pierce could be an every week starter, but he's got a tough matchup this week going against the Jags. We got a couple questions about the Jags, so we'll talk about them. This will be his toughest test so far. So if he can keep this going, he for sure is an every week starter. Fields through some more. Barkley's amazing. Jones can run. What else is there? Are they going to get Wandale back? Is Tony going to ever play again? Richie James did nothing. Penny killed it. Sorry, Scott. Scott posted a message. We always say try and get it in. 12:30 is the cutoff. There was the London game was going on, and I happened to be looking at my phone. It was about 12:45, I believe, and he posted and he asked Connor or Penny, and literally about 30 minutes before that, below somebody asked a question involving Penny. I told him to go Penny. I told Scott to go Connor. Sorry, but I'm going to say this. I'm a Penny owner in a Dynasty League, and that's the best game of the season. We've seen this before last year. He's got it locked down over Walker, but it could be a time to sell high DK, Hawk, Jamal, and Josh and Craig Reynolds. I talked about Craig Reynolds. Listen, he had 45% snap share, ran a ton of routes. He was just Goff was throwing the ball everywhere else. Hawk kept getting open. His boy Josh Reynolds got open. So Craig Reynolds is somebody, if you're dire need, Javonte owner, Jonathan Taylor owner, I'm telling you, you got one more week because Swift's going to be out this week, and then they got to bye, and then he'll come back, and then it'll be a three-headed or at least two-headed monster. ETN, I think this week, Kirk with a down game, we said it was coming. This is big here. Agnew's a thing again. Remember back last year, Agnew was big down the stretch, got hurt. He's playing wide receiver, and 2 games in a row now, Lawrence is looking his way. Miles Sanders was a plus. We call that. A.J. Brown plus, and Devontae Smith. Listen, this is the Eagles' backfield. It's going to be like that, or wide receiver is going to be like this, I think, all season. A.J. Brown's going to have a huge game. I look at the matchups. We'll come back. It looks like we're going to have to do a Saturday night show again, a big show like we did last week. It was a great show. We had tons of participation from YouTube as well as Facebook. But it looks like Smith's going to have a down game, and he's going to come right back. So if you're a Devonta Smith owner, don't get too down in the dubs. This is big too. Brees is now. Told you it was happening. It happened in full force last week. Not worried about Wilson and Pickens. A lot of you know about Pickens. Everybody knows about it, but Pickett loves Pickens, and that was clear to see. We could say peace to Claypool. Amari, the great magician. Has there ever been anybody in football that does a better disappearing act than Amari Cooper? You saw it when he was on the Raiders um, and the Cowboys to some degree as well. A lot of times he was hurt there. But this is him, man. This is him. 19 attempts from Mariota. Huntley looks great. There's going to be questions about Algier or Huntley. I think it's going to be a split. Atlanta wants to run, and this was the fastest game, as I said. It wasn't so much about Atlanta. It was more so about Cleveland. They want to run, run, run. Atlanta wants to run, run, run. This game kicked off as one of the last 1 p.m. games, and it was done before the rest of the 1 p.m. games. Derrick Henry catching passes 2 weeks in a row. You got to love that. And Mo Alley-Cox, don't worry. Don't bother. They got 3 tight ends. It was his favorite choice. Ryan spreads it around to everybody, including different wide receivers. Antonio Gibson down. Dotson's hurt. Pollard down. Lamb's good to go. Gallup was nice to see. And Noah Brown, someone that's not on this list, but you could see right away that Gallup is eating into that. Shakir for Buffalo, rookie. I don't know how he's going to fit into this, but it's a name you should know. Wide receiver rookie Shakir. Because they got 3 there. Gabe Davis dropping balls like crazy. Gave Shakir some burn. And he looked pretty good out there. So they could have a nice 4 wide receiver set. Bateman's hurt. The Baltimore backfield, I mean, Dobbins was the best one. Justice Hill's hurt. Gus Edwards coming back. Still want no part of that. Kyler needs D-Hop. I mean, you know, I talked about Scott. I said, I'm sorry. The offense with Connor, he can't do anything because Kyler just looks terrible. He needs D-Hop. And if you're a Marquise Brown owner, there's a question about that. Somebody traded away. I'd be fine trading him away because D-Hop will be back, week 7? And he needs him. He's going to look his way all the time. Dortch fell off in this one. And so it's a mess there in Arizona. We talked about that last week, both shows that we did. Baker, a lot of them aren't his fault, but a lot of them are. In fourth quarter, Christian McCaffrey. But is he a ticking time bomb? I mean, he just looks like he's about to get injured. I cringe every time I watch him, and I don't even own him. Russ up, Javonte down, Gordon out. I could have said Gordon down, Javonte out. Sadness. A lot of questions about Boone, Latavius Murray. Jacobs is killing it. Adams, we knew he'd come back. Like the thing with Javonte and Gordon, I think it's going to be close to the same. We'll talk more about it when we get into the questions with Boone and Latavius and Gordon. Javonte was running at a 67 to 72% clip. I mean, his stats as far as the amount of rushes and the amount of pass targets he was getting versus Gordon, he was about to take that over. And Gordon's fumbles, that's gone. And I don't know if Gordon just moves up to the 1. I think you see Boone. Latavius Murray looked really good last week. He probably stepped right in. Pacheco, if we didn't grab him early, it might be too late. Can't trust the KC wide receivers. That includes Mecole Hardman. Probably dump him. Rashad White, Godwin was good to see. So Pacheco and Rashad White are 2 guys at running back if you need help this week. Kupp and Higbee, and that's about it. Is Juwan Jennings a stash? Could be. I'm going to pop right to the comments. What's up, Frank? What's up, Dan? What's up, Jeremy? We'll get to those questions in just a minute. First, got questions from the group. People posted these throughout the past couple of days. I want to answer them. Spencer asked, should I trade Najee for Cook? I don't hate this. Over the next 4 weeks, you might be a little better with Cook. Playoffs are about the same. I got a feeling Warren is going to continue to get more snaps. We don't know how it's going to go with Pickett being the quarterback. Could he take more of the runs? We know, if you don't know Kenny Pickett from last year, he had that infamous run where he did the fake slide and then stayed up and ran in for the touchdown for Pittsburgh last year, college Pittsburgh. Cook's got that injured shoulder, and he's in and out all the time. So that's the risk that you're willing to take, Spencer. Yes, Najee's production's been down. Yes, Warren's breathing down his neck. Cook's got a little bit of an easier schedule. coming up here. I don't hate it. If it makes you feel better, go for it. Michael asked, do you see Boone overtaking Gordon? That's the first question. I think that, again, I think it's going to be a three-headed monster. I kind of want no part of it. If you're dying, Boone, Latavius, Gordon, I mean, Gordon's owned. He's in the doghouse. So if you're a Gordon owner and you automatically think now Javonte's gone, now I got the RB1 in Denver, don't think that's how it's going to go. For Gordon's sake, I don't hate him. I just wish he would have went away from my boy Javonte. If he could hold on to the ball, he could easily be the majority shareholder in Denver, and Boone maybe play like a third down role and see what Latavius mixes in with. But if you're in a fab, I'm not spending too much money on Boone or Latavius. But if you are in dire need and it's waivers, take a stab. But I think that you're going to be getting, at best, half of what Javonte was giving you. And because Gordon was there, stealing 25 to 35% of the production and punching in a majority of the touchdowns so far for Denver, cut that in half of what Javonte was getting. Is that something to go crazy about? I'm not sure. Algier or Huntley looked amazing. So I see this probably 50-50. And anyone worth the number one? Huntley was a rookie last year. I kind of liked him. Never really got too much burn really anywhere. We'll see. If I use a number one, it would be on one of the Atlanta backs before one of the Denver backs, without a doubt. Algier above Huntley, and then I'd probably go Boone and Latavius, because Latavius, he's got those old legs. He did this last year, and I believe the year before. Looks really good for a game or two. Something goes wrong, gets hurt, he's out. Keith asked a question, trade Gibson and Juju for Woods and Hunt. I don't mind this at all. I think Woods is coming on. I believe you have Nick Chubb on your roster. So having Hunt there to help you, I like that. I think Gibson he's already losing snaps to McKissick, and Robinson will be back. I don't think he's going to come back this week. We'll see. I don't believe it. Probably week 6. But Gibson, they don't like Gibson. Wouldn't surprise me if they traded him. I mean, he's a former wide receiver, converted to running back, splashed a bit his rookie year last year. This year, he's just sort of fallen out of favor. He's getting like 30% of the snaps. I would do this trade. Juju, you can't trust the Kansas City wide receivers. He's spreading the ball around to everybody. Sooner or later, Sky Moore is going to become the number one there. Do this trade. I'm fine with it, Keith. Derek needs 1 RB and 2 flex. B-Rob, because I don't think he's going to play this week. I can't choose him, so it's down to Akers or Algier. I want to see how Algier and Huntley split it. I know how Akers and Henderson are going to split. Last night was a tough game. We can't go off of that. Akers was doing better. I'll play Akers, and then I'm going to go Judy and Mooney. Mooney's matchup is pretty good this week. And they were throwing a little bit more, so let's hope this hot streak keeps going. So Akers, Judy, and Mooney. Alan had a question. His commissioner in this league got Jonathan Taylor and gave up Romeo and Penny. On paper, it looks terrible. In reality, it's not too much better. But JT they were thinking it was a high ankle sprain. And if it was a high ankle sprain, we're looking at like 4 to 6 weeks. He didn't practice today. We'll see how he practices tomorrow. I get it. It looks like collusion. But what's basically doing, he's selling Penny as high as can possibly be. And Dubs, Dubs. It's spelled Dubs. They call him Dobbs. He's a solid wide receiver 3 at worst. If JT is out 2 or 3 weeks, we'll see. I don't know if it's collusion, like a lot of people were saying. I think that it looks ridiculous, but if Penny stays healthy, This is a lot closer than it seems. Robbie asks Jacobs, Godwin, or Connor. He's using Evans, so he'd be using both. He traded Hollywood, Everett, and Burkhead for Connor. Thoughts on that? I think that Kyler needs D Hop. We saw it last year. I'm sinking in my chair, if you can't tell. It's not just my fat butt, it's this broken chair. And I think that's hurting Connor greatly. Um, I don't think it's too bad because you gave away. I don't know who your tight end is. Everett's been killing it. He's a tight end machine so far. He's getting a lot of usage. I don't know who your starting tight end is. But if you told me you traded Hollywood and Burkhead for Connor, I'd be like, that's a win. Even if Connor has not performed all that greatly. Throwing Everett in there, if he's your second tight end, that's fine. And you open up 2 roster spots. You have a running back who, if he stays healthy, once D Hop comes back, this offense should become more, what's the word I'm looking for? Efficient, more effective. So I don't think it's terrible. But to your question, I think I would go with Godwin. The other two have tough matchups. Connor's got a tough matchup. Jacobs has a tough matchup. Jacobs on Monday night. Typically, we go with the Monday Night Magic. But on a Tuesday night, I'm saying if Kansas City blows them out, it's going to take Jacobs out of the game. I'd rather just go with Godwin against Atlanta and just have both Bucks. I think Tom Brady is looking to beat up on somebody and throw the ball all over people. And it could be good to have both of these guys this week. Shout out to Chad for supporting us via Patreon. 2 subscribers. And that's amazing. More than we could ever ask for. Antonio wants to know Wilson, Woods, or Reynolds. Garrett Wilson, I'm not down on him, but I think I would go with Woods here. I think I would go with Woods. Josh Reynolds, I like him, but Amon-Ra should be coming back, I think, this week. He was relatively close last week. I know I called him out relatively, Friday, I think. But I don't think it's that bad. I think he'll be back. So it bumps Reynolds down just a little. And Woods is on a little bit of a hot streak right now with Tannehill. So I'm fine with Woods. And Bills or Jags. Love the Jags defense. If they're sitting out there on the waiver wire, it's worth a pickup. They got a good matchup against Houston. But I'm going to go with the Bills. I think their matchup is really good. And they are just a superior defense that is more proven than the Jags at this point. So if I had to choose one or the other, I'm going to go with the Bills. Keith wants to know, who would I pick up, B-Rob or Patterson? Somebody must have dropped Patterson. They weren't happy. I would probably go B-Rob because while I don't think he plays this week, I do think he plays next week. And I do think he jumps right into the number 1 role because they don't like Gibson. Patterson could be, it's at least 4 weeks. So I will go with B-Rob here because then you have somebody for at least 3 of the next 4 weeks instead of 0 of the next 4 weeks. But if you have an IR spot, you can pick up Patterson and throw him on the IR, but somebody's probably going to pick up Robinson. And Tony wants to know, Samuel, I'm going to imagine that's Curtis, not Debo, because if it's Debo, you know the answer. So Curtis Samuel, Lazard, or Woods. He needs 2. And then he wants to know Eagles or Cowboys. So I'm going to go with this one, Lazard, against the Giants in London. And I'm going to go with Curtis Samuel because Dotson's hurt. So that just gives him a further bump. And, Antonio, I told you to play Woods in the other matchup in your other league, I guess. And that way you don't put both your eggs in Woods' basket. And you need 2, Eagles or Cowboys. I think I would probably go with the Eagles here. Let me just double check. Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys are playing on the road against the Rams. That's what I thought. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. Let's go with, the Cowboys are on the road against Rams. Eagles are on the road against Arizona. I'm going to go with the Eagles. Eagles. Your question's live. Let's see what we got here. You're welcome. Frank got his first win. 1-3 is not terrible. Sounds terrible, but it's not terrible. I mean, 1-3 it's a quarter of the season. So now you got to win 2 out of the next 4 and get you to 3-5. And then you're working your way up. Better waiver wire picker, Moster. Dan, thank you for joining us. I am not a fan of the Dolphins backfield by any means. With Teddy being the quarterback, I don't know if that helps or hurts. But against the Jets this week, he certainly has a better matchup this week. But I think season long, I mean, Algier was getting burned even with Patterson there, and he was looking pretty good. Mostert, you never know if it's going to be him or if it's going to be Edmonds or if they're going to end up throwing Ahmed in there. I'm going to pick up Algier and just have a better – and Mostert's a little bit made of glass as well. So I'm going to pick up Algier, take my shot at the rookie. Atlanta wants to run. They don't have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle storming down the field. And I don't know what's up with Kyle Pitts, so they want to run. I'm going to go with Algier. Costanza effects what I always say. My gut always says trust your gut, the opposite of what I say. Yes, Costanza effect. That's the theme. I mean, in all honesty, we've had a pretty successful season with our calls. And usually our calls are a little Costanza-ish. But even the good calls that have come through have been a little Costanza-ish. It's like, I don't know if that's what you should have said. It worked out, but you kind of went with the opposite. It's kind of what we do at ABG, though. Finally, 1-3, as I just said, 1-3 is where you want to be. Time to worry about Kittle. I don't think so. Coming back from an injury. I mean, last night, Ayuk, Jennings had a couple balls. Debo killed it. Their defense did their job. They didn't really need them. They will be, I mean, something's up with the Rams offense. I believe it's Stafford. Allen Robinson's terrible. Maybe they need Van Jefferson. I mean, who would ever thought Van Jefferson would be a difference maker? I don't know if he is, but something's up. Stafford's banged up. I'm not worried about Kittle because I think against teams that can handle the San Francisco defense and make better decisions with the ball will allow Kittle to be more involved. And each week, he's 1 week healthier. I'm not worried at all. Tight end's a wasteland. I mean, what are you going to do? You're gonna go with somebody else. I mean, you're going to hope and pray with a Bobby Tunyon that he gets a red zone target because that's about it. You stick with Kittle. You don't worry. You put him in your lineup. You have Kirk Cousins, and Carr. Thinking of dropping Carr for Teddy to stack with Waddle. Here's my problem with that, Josue. Teddy doesn't like Waddle. Waddle last year with Teddy was not much at all. It wasn't until Tua came in that Waddle blew up. Tua and Waddle went to college together. It's his college buddy. He chucks him the ball. Teddy rarely looked Waddle's way last year. And this past one game, half a game, when he came in for Tua, Waddle had 5 points? Something like that. So, I don't know. I'm not in love with Kirk, but I will tell you this, and this is for you, Josue, and everybody. I do think Teddy is going to be starting for about 5 or 6 weeks. I think that they are going to hold Tua out longer than they need to because this isn't a football thing anymore. This is the whole world. The whole world saw the fingers. That was plastered on news channels where people who couldn't even tell you what NFL stands for were watching. And they saw this and they go, oh, those Dolphins, what are they doing? They're going to kill this man, So they're now playing a PR game. They have to save face. I don't think they're going to rush Tua back out there. He might be ready to go next week. I don't think it's going to happen. So Teddy has some value for the next 4 or 5 weeks, I would think. But stacking him with Waddle, I mean, you're not going to get that double BB banger that we love with the quarterback and wide receiver, possibly. But having Teddy there, at least you got Hill, and if he happens to use Gasecki, if he's not blocking, um, I don't hate it. But Kirk has a couple better weapons, I think, at his disposal, and I don't think they're going to yank him. They probably should at some point, but they're winning, so it won't happen. I believe they're 3-1 at this point. So you go with your gut there, flip a Costanza coin, and I'm not doing it to stack with Waddle. If I did it, it's because I can't stand Kirk. I would play matchups and look at that from that way. In the time being, I think the defense for Kansas City's tough. But if you do get rid of Kirk and grab Teddy, I might just still go with Carr on Monday night and just hope that he keeps feeding Adams. Oh, gosh. I don't know. Taysom did what you needed him to do. He got a cheap touchdown last week, and you're only using him at tight end. But I think, Richie James had a down game, but he's like all they got at this point. Kyle Phillips did nothing. I'm fine with dropping all four. You asked a question about Kittle, so you don't need Taysom Hill. Yeah, drop him. Eagles or Jags this week. Eagles on the road against Arizona. Jags at home against Houston, right? I believe they're at home. I'd probably go with the Jags, but then if you're not dropping the Eagles, which is smart, who are you going to drop? But I don't mind it. I don't mind the Eagles. I don't think you do poorly either way. You get to see, I did. It was the first question I answered. I said I don't hate it. Cook has a little bit of a better schedule. Jalen Warren's coming for Najee's job. Playoff schedule is about the same. The only thing that worries me is Dalvin Cook's shoulder. He's often out a game or two, but Najee's got his foot. It's so even. You just have to go with your gut. Keith, that's okay. So I said Robinson, and the reason being is because I don't think that Robinson is going to play this week, but he will be there the next 3 weeks, and Patterson's going to be out for 4. So I'd rather have somebody that I know is going to step into the starter role because Gibson's done there. I mean, he's already down to 35% snaps. They're playing McKissick all the time. Robinson's going to step right in, and Patterson's got at least 4 weeks. So even if you have to wait 2 weeks or 1 week for Robinson, it's better off. Kind of fab you spend on Dalvin Cook and Mark Andrews. This is your Vampire League. Yeah. Tight ends Kittle and Hurst. I would spend a good amount on Mark Andrews. I would spend a good amount on Cook because I don't think Jonathan Taylor plays this week. Pollard, he could be okay this week. They might need him in the passing game. He was good 2 weeks ago, not so great last week. Pierce has a tough matchup. Not a fan of the Miami backfield. I mean, I would put in. I mean, again, Chad. I think we had this sort of discussion before. Look at the type of money people spend. I mean, but these two guys, and you got to remember, every single week, the vampire kills somebody. And guillotine Vampire League, and the guillotine chops their head off, and all these players fall. And there's always going to be studs to pick from. But I would spend minimum 30% on each of these guys. Maybe closer to 50, somewhere in between that range. You spend 50 on each, and you get them both, now you're out of money. So look at what people spend. We had this sort of conversation before. You can PM us. You're a Patreon subscriber. And we'll go back and forth even tonight because I'm going to watch some movies. Got no school tomorrow. So I'm going to be up late, vampiring it myself. So we can talk about it. But I think Dalvin Cook will help your team greatly this week. especially with JT out. And I love Mark Andrews over Kittle. I mean, I'm not worried about Kittle, but I like it. He's the best one in football at this point. I mean, Kelsey. Hollywood for Sanders. Are you getting Miles Sanders? Because if you are, I will take Miles Sanders all day for Hollywood. Are you talking about? Yeah. If you're getting Miles Sanders and those three are your starters, then you don't need Hollywood at all. And I think this you down here, you need a running back. Yes, yes. You absolutely take that. Hollywood isn't, he's the only one. So any production he's got is for that reason. He's ran a couple bad routes. He's dropped a few balls. He's had a couple big fantasy games. D-Hop's coming back week 7. And you know D-Hop's going to get fed so long as he stays healthy. I would trade Hollywood while it's hot for sure and get Miles Sanders without a doubt. Because as much as, the Eagles' backfield drives us nuts in years past, Miles Sanders running the show. Superflex. Marty wants to know he has a number 1. He has a Dallas QB, Dak, and Rush. He also has Kyler. Pick up Pickett waivers for some security? Yes. No. They will not go back to Trubisky. I do not think so. They've named him the starter. It's exactly what I said on Saturday night's show. When we did the big show Saturday night, which we're going to do another one this week. We're going to have to because there's another London game. So we're going to do another big show with questions, and all the game breakdowns will be another 2-hour banger. But I think I had said, why are they not putting Pickett in? They're not winning a Super Bowl this year with either one of them. And I said, I'm sorry, Braden, because I know he's a big Pittsburgh fan. It's not happening. So they might as well get the kid in there, get him some burn, get him some experience. And they named Kenny Pickett the starter. I don't think that's going to go away, barring any type of injury. So I think you definitely do it. Yeah, there's a tough schedule, but it's a super flex, and he's the starter, and quarterbacks are gold. You basically have 2 QBs at this point. You need 3 in a super flex. So yes, you do this. Yeah, you have to. You have to, man. You have to. With Javonte going down, you have to. So look to trade Waddle while you can. You would have had to have done that 2 weeks ago, unless somebody is still looking high on him. Listen, I'm not selling Waddle because Tua will be back, and Teddy could have to look his way. I'm not saying he's worthless. What I'm pointing out is that Teddy to Waddle is not a thing. It was Tua to Waddle. You can go back and look at last year when Teddy was the starter before Tua came in and took over. Waddle wasn't doing much. And then as soon as Tua came in, Waddle blew up. And this year continued to feed him. It was almost to the point where he was looking for him more than he was looking for Tyreek Hill. So it's just your Waddle value goes down a little, but I don't think he's worthless. They can't, but they're going to try and contain Hill, and you can't contain both of these guys. So if you trade them, don't trade them cheap. Not at all. I've always been a stream of QB, but man, I think next year I'm taking QB early. Yeah. It's tough. But yes, this year, and I think we discussed that. That might have been after week 1 or week 2. I think it was the Tuesday show, might have been Answers with Guests, or it might have been the Sunday morning show that we did with the questions. And I had said that. I said, all in years past, you always heard everybody says, wait on the QB, wait on the QB, wait on the QB. And this is proving that you can't wait on a QB because aside from the top 3 or 4 that could kill it every single week, it's a barren wasteland. However, Lamar wasn't great last week. Lamar cost me 1 game. I wound up 3-3 in my 6 leagues. So even when you have that banger, Jalen Hurts has yet to fall, victim to it, but I'm sure he will. I haven't looked at Josh Allen's every game, but I want to say that maybe against Miami, he didn't kill it. So yeah, you can jump the gun, and I think that should be a trend. It's not a slam dunk as much, as it seems. But yeah, you want one of those top 3 or 4 quarterbacks. You want a running quarterback that pays. We can't do a wait till the 12th round, 8th round to pick a QB anymore. Otherwise, we're going to be left with a bunch of guys that aren't doing what we need. Yeah, that's a problem. But the last 3 on the list this week, I'm not worried. Pippen had a down game. Moelle Cox caught the touchdowns. What are you going to do? Waddle, like I said, he's not worthless. You just have to realize Teddy to Waddle is not the same as Tua to Waddle. And Kittle, like I said, is coming back from the injury. Keep your head up. Donnie, what's up? Welcome. Number 1 waiver. Not a deep waiver list. No. Tired of having it. Do you need a running back? Do you need a running back who really is not even worthy of a number 1 waiver? I'm not sure if this is a 12-man league, 14-man league, 10-man league. But if that's the best you have, I would just hold on to my number 1 waiver. Is George Pickens available? Because if he is, just grab him and trade him for a better running back. 12-man league. I don't know if Pickens would be available, but man, if he is, somebody probably grabbed him after that catch, actually, 2 weeks ago. People saw the catch, were like, oh, this guy's good. And probably scooped him, or maybe they drafted him. Who knows? But Murray, I think, looked amazing last week to me. I'm sure pretty much all of us watched that game in London. It looked really good. But I think going to Denver, you're looking at 33% share more than likely for the 3 of them. And if Gordon can shore up the fumbles and stop doing it every game more than once, then he will lock down that backfield. He was losing it, but Javante's gone. So what I said earlier, Donnie, is that you have 2 people replacing Javante. Javante was at a 67 to 72% clip. If you look at his rushes and his pass targets, not even talking about snap percentage, because that's kind of close, because I talked about this a couple weeks ago. They didn't really sub out within drives. It was like, this is a Javante drive, this is a Javante drive, this is a Gordon drive, this is a Gordon drive, this is Javante. So you have Javante gone, Murray Boone in. Boone came in for Javante. Murray's going to come in with some of that. So I don't think you're getting full Javante. And unfortunately, Javante wasn't even as good as it should have been because Gordon was stealing the touchdowns. So I don't want to use number 1 on either one of those guys. Huntley looked good last week. I liked him last year as a rookie. Never really got burned anywhere. Wound up on the Falcons. I think at best you're looking at 50-50 with Algier. So I would wait. And then Patterson will be back in 4 weeks or a little longer. So I'm fine holding on to the number 1 waiver or grabbing a stud wide receiver and trading for a better running back with some stability. 12-man league, 6 bench, 3 wide receivers. That's the type of league I like. What about Everett in a PPR style league? You have Andrews in that one. Yeah, Everett's been on fire. We talked about that. I'm fine with it. I'm not against 2 tight ends. I'm not against 2 QBs. However, the second tight end and the second QB are the first person to go when I see another running back or another wide receiver I want. Listen, if you want to drop Everett, somebody can probably type this in the comments because I've said it ad nauseum for years, week after week. You could drop anybody, but who are you picking up? Why are you dropping them? So if you got somebody amazing out there, um, or maybe that's you want to pick up Everett instead of, I'm not sure what you're saying, but either way, I don't mind two tight ends. Long story short, Eckler, James Robinson, Penny play two at RB and the other at flex. Or Lazard or Elijah Moore at flex and Zach is back. You know, it's early in the week. Could be a Saturday night question. Yes, Marty, please ask it on Saturday night. But let me just look here because I'm not sure who the Chargers are playing. The Browns on the road. I love James Robinson. I definitely want to use him this week against Houston, without a doubt. Penny, I believe, has a tough matchup. Yeah, against the Saints run defense. Cook looked okay against them last week. I'm definitely playing James Robinson. I'd probably stick with Eckler. I think he got going a little bit. The matchup was easy, but he got going a little bit on the ground. He's been getting the catches, so I'd stick with those two. Not going to jump on Penny just yet, just because the Saints' rush defense is solid. I don't hate Penny, but I would probably actually as well play Lazard over Elijah Moore. So let's re-ask this question Saturday night, Marty. But right now I'll go with Eckler, Robinson, Lazard. All right, you probably drop Palmer. If your wide receivers can handle it, I mean, Palmer is just ascending. He's ascending, and until Keenan Allen comes back, Mike Williams can always get hurt. It'd be a tough drop unless I got 3 or 4 stud wide receivers. Would you drop Zay Jones and grab Sky Moore? I don't think you need to use your number one waiver to get Sky Moore. I don't think anybody is going to be picking him up this week. I would just wait and let waivers go by and then drop Zay Jones and grab Sky Moore. I don't see him being somebody that somebody's going after just yet. There's not enough wide receiver injuries. The bye weeks haven't started. But speaking of which, bye weeks are next week. And what's going to happen is people are going to look to pick up players to fill their bye weeks next week. Next week is going to be a tough waiver period. Now is the time to start prepping for your bye weeks if you haven't done so already. Do that this week before you have competition for those other players. If you have any guys on bye now, or if you have any guys on bye, in the coming weeks following next week, start doing that now, because once the buys start, waivers gets even more competitive. So now is a good time, if you haven't done so, to start planning and prepping for those bye weeks. As far as your question, Keith, I'm fine with the move, but don't use a waiver number one for it. Any other questions? Man, every week this is just like this. 45 minutes on the dot, and we nail it every single time. Love it. We get through the recap. We get through the group questions. We get through your questions live. We got some viewers. We got some YouTubes. We got some Facebook. I like it. Listen, week 5's coming up, and we talked about the Costanza effect. But the truth of the matter is you just have to stay the course. The first quarter of the season's over. It's been ridiculous, but I feel like it's like that every year. And I talked about this last week. Continue to know that it will all work out. They're the guys that you have been waiting for, much like Eckler last week, much like Henry 2 weeks ago. I said, Henry's going to have a big week this week. People were dropping Henry, trading him for peanuts. He's had 2 huge games in a row. Eckler, same thing. It's going to even out. They will progress to the mean if they are down below. And a lot of the guys that are high will regress to the mean. Things will even out. We're entering the second quarter. That was just the first quarter. The game is 4 quarters. So we're not even halfway done. Do not give up hope. Stay the course. We don't have to go full Costanza, but things have been crazy, so I get it. Is Miles Sanders a must start every week now? I feel like it might be. Yeah, we had talked about Miles Sanders. Yeah, he's until anything unfortunate happens to him, which I hope it does not. Um, I don't see why not. He's top three. He's got to be in running backs. I mean, maybe after the past couple of weeks he could have fallen, but he had a big week last week, big week the week before. So I would be fine with that. I mean, watch the matchups, but I got no problem with Miles Sanders. Told somebody up above they wanted to trade Hollywood for Miles Sanders. You have to do that. You have to do that. That's the slam dunk, accept. Give me a running back who's top five, minimum top three. Yeah, especially in this offense where they got to worry about Hurts. Hurts is stealing some stuff, but Sanders is getting his. Gainwell's stealing stuff, but Sanders is still getting his. So you have to do that. So, yeah, that's a great feeling. And Jamal, while Swift is out, of course, you got this week. I talked about this. Not sure if you were with us. Craig Reynolds was a guesstimator last week. Dude played 45% of the snaps, Craig Reynolds. Only had 2 carries. I believe, I want to say 30 yards, 21 and 9, I think. He ran a ton of pass routes. The problem was everybody else was just open because Seattle's defense is terrible. So Craig Reynolds didn't have a huge stat line. Jamal had a good one. Hockenson had a good one. Reynolds had a good one. Amon-Ra should be back this week, I think. But I really like Craig Reynolds going forward. If you're absolutely dying, maybe you own JT and Javonte, and it's a barren wasteland out there, I would grab Craig Reynolds and play him this week. The usage was there. The production was not, but it wasn't his fault. Anytime he got the ball, 2 carries, he turned it into, I think, 30 yards, 21 and 9. So I like Jamal Williams while Swift is out. I like Jamal Williams while Swift is in. So every week starter, not as much as Sanders. Drop Ayuk for Tony or Pickens. I like Ayuk. He just, this is the same sort of thing with Jeremy asked about Kittle. Like, yeah, his production wasn't great. He's coming back from injury, but listen, they didn't need to do much. Jeff Wilson had a big run, got a touchdown. They had a pick 6. Debo had that huge touchdown. The guy went for the pick, and he jumped over him and ran it in. That's 21 points right there, and that was pretty much all they needed to win the game. But before that, leading up to that, first play of the game was a big play to Ayuk. Ayuk's fine. I'm not dropping him for Tony. For Pickens, maybe. But I would see if I had somebody else to drop. Sooner or later, Lazard will go off. He has been. I mean, he had a great game last week. If it wasn't for Bobby T getting the touchdown last week, I think you would have had Lazard get another one. I mean, let's just look. I mean, how much more do you need? He had 6 receptions for 116 yards last week. Week before, touchdown and a few. So he's doing his thing, man. Don't know how much I missed. How can I watch it again? Antonio, it should already be on the group, and it's always there, and then I'll put it into the featured. So on the group page, it will be right there for you. But Antonio, your questions were, I'll just give them to you real quick. Sorry, everybody else. You asked Wilson, Woods, or Reynolds. You need 2. And then you said Bills or Jags. I think I gave you just Woods here. And then I said Bills. I didn't realize you needed 2. I'll go with Wilson because I'm not down on Wilson. And Reynolds, I'll go with Reynolds if Amon-Ra's not back. So ask this question again Saturday night if you join us for the show. But definitely Woods. Because then on this question, I'm going to go with Samuel. I believe it's Curtis. Hopefully it's not Debo, because if it's Debo, you're playing him. But you're playing him anyways. I go with Samuel and Lazard, and then I went with the Eagles. And the reason I didn't pick Woods again is so that you didn't have to put both of your eggs in Woods' basket. You could sort of split it up. Same question from last week. Almost Cooks or Olave, a wide receiver 2, or play both and bench Jamal or Sanders. I don't know if you want to bench Sanders. Let me just see. I don't know who the Saints are playing. Oh, Seahawks. Yeah. Well, you got to play Olave. Cooks against the Jags could be tough. They could take him out. So as of right now, just looking at it on a Tuesday night, I'm going to go Olave and Sanders. Yeah. Right? I'm not sure how one of those guys, wide receiver 2, you could play both and bench one of those 2 guys. Are those 2 guys your flexes? Is that what's going on? You're welcome. Is that what's going on? Michael, you say one's a wide receiver 2, but then how do you got 2 running backs? You got Sanders in the flex. Keep Sanders in the flex. Keep Sanders in the flex. Play Olave. That's what I would do. I mean, you're looking at Philly going against Arizona. Their rush defense, they should be able to run pretty well against them. The Philly defense, you could get a lot of short fields. Kyler's just been playing terrible. I'm going to go with Olave and Sanders on a Tuesday night. We could talk about Thursday game real quick, coming up on an hour. All right. So, yeah. So just keep it that way. I'm fine with that because I think they could take Cooks out. I mean, I like to play Cooks because there's PPR, but that Jags defense could be trouble for Davis Mills in Jacksonville. Colts Broncos. We'll have to see what happens with JT. Deion Jackson is a guy who's going to get a lot of burn. They signed Philip Lindsay. Don't bother with him, but he's there. Naheem Hines. He's not a bruiser running back. So I think it's going to be Deion Jackson and Naheem Hines in like a 50-50 split. And they'll sprinkle in Philip Lindsay just to ruin you playing either one of those guys this week against the Broncos. The Broncos defense is no slouch. Matt Ryan, I don't know how he's going to survive in Mile High, to be honest. He's got a ton of good weapons. His 3 tight ends that he uses. 1 week it's Mo. The next week it's Kylan. A couple weeks before that and after that it's Jelani Woods. So I would stay away from all those. It's pretty much just Pittman for me. If you want to play Hines, just hope that they get down early. Problem is Denver's offense, aside from a little bit of burst last week with Russell Wilson having a nice game, haven't looked great. Well, I don't think that Shaq Leonard's going to play in this one. They said he's got something wrong with him, broken nose. So maybe that helps the Broncos offense. Judy, Sutton, I'm good with those 2. So it's really just Judy, Sutton. If you got to play Alec Pierce, okay, and Michael Pittman. I'm staying away from the running backs. I'm staying away from the Colts running backs as well, Denver running backs especially, unless I absolutely need to. There are a ton of running back injuries, so if you have to play them, I completely understand. I do think the Broncos win this game just because they're at home. And Mile High is a tough place to play. Russell Wilson kind of got it going last week. He's a little banged up with the shoulder, but they say he'll be fine. Albert O has sort of disappeared. So if it's not Pittman, if it's not Pierce, Doolin disappeared once Pierce came back, and it's not Sutton, it's not Judy, I would just stay away if it's not one of these 4 wide receivers. Naheem Hines is an honorable mention because if they get down early, they'll use him. Then there's the wild card, the black horse, the dark horse, Deion Jackson. If you don't know the name, Colts running back. He could flash, but it's a tough matchup. If this was against Houston, I would say take a shot. But it's against Denver. Maybe you scoop them and you sit and you wait. Yeah, Ebner looked good for the Bears. He did. And I don't think Montgomery's coming back for quite some time. So I think you're going to see more Ebner each and every week. And of course, more Khalil. Yeah, Shaq's ruled out. Yeah, and so is Lewis. So we'll see. It should be a good Thursday game. It's the NFL. You never know. You can't go off of last week. The Colts looked a little lost, but they didn't look too bad. Rob had mentioned, Matt Ryan looks like he's in cement or quicksand. That's true, but he spreads the ball around. I'm fine playing Pittman in this one. I do think he bounces back some. I'm not shying away from him. Alec Pierce has become a little bit of a PPR machine, and obviously Judy and Sutton should be in your starting lineup against the Colts. Well, this was week 4.5, week 5 answers with yes. Once again, if you didn't hear us, Saturday night will probably be our week 5 show. It'll be another big show. We'll go through all the games. We'll answer your questions, any questions from the group, and the live questions, because Sunday morning we have another London game, Green Bay and the Giants. I'm nervous about that one. The Giants always have Green Bay's number, but should be another good one in London. Hopefully some points. Hopefully Green Bay's offense gets going. Hopefully the Giants find somebody to throw the ball to. Well, hopefully not for my favorite team, but for fantasy purposes. Fantasy Football's Inside Scoop from outside the box. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all Saturday night. Have a good one.